You're at a wedding reception, or a work thing, or the birthday dinner of someone you only half know. You're holding a drink you don't really want, checking your phone even though nothing has happened on it, and watching two people across the room talk like they were born knowing how to do this. They're laughing about the parking garage. The parking garage. Somehow, this has become material. One of them says it took 3 loops to find a space. The other says the garage felt designed by someone who hated cars. And now they're both smiling, relaxed, already a little connected. Meanwhile, your brain is treating the entire situation like a hostage negotiation. Should I walk over? What do I say? Is hello enough? What if they give me that polite little smile and then the conversation just dies in front of all 3 of us? The weirdest part is that the subject isn't hard. It's not grief. It's not politics. It's not some complicated theory. It's just parking, weather, snacks, traffic, the room being too cold. Nothing important is being said. And that's exactly what makes it terrifying. Because small talk can feel like a test where the questions are easy, but nobody tells you what the test is for. Here's the secret. Small talk isn't small because it's meaningless. It's small because it's low risk. It's the social version of stepping onto a frozen lake and tapping the surface before you put your weight down. In 1923, the anthropologist Bronislaw Malinowski gave a name to this strange kind of talking. He called it phatic communion. He noticed that a huge amount of everyday speech isn't really about information. When someone says, "long line today," they usually don't need a report on the line. When they say, "nice weather," they aren't launching a meteorological inquiry. They're sending a signal. I see you. I'm safe. We can share this tiny piece of reality for a moment. Once you understand that, small talk stops looking like a performance. It starts looking like a doorway. For most of human history, approaching another person badly could cost you. Strangers weren't automatically harmless. Groups mattered. Belonging mattered. So humans needed a way to test friendliness without immediately demanding trust. We needed little verbal rituals that said, "I'm not here to threaten you, compete with you, or ask too much from you." That's why so many openings are about the room you're already in. The coffee is stronger than I expected. I forgot how loud this place gets. That line moved exactly 2 inches in 5 minutes. These sentences aren't attempts to be brilliant. They're invitations to stand on the same small patch of ground. And shy people often miss this because shyness turns attention inward. You start monitoring your face, your hands, your voice, your timing, the sentence you just said, the sentence you're about to say, and whether the other person noticed you thinking about all of it. But good small talk usually begins with the opposite move. You point your attention outward, not to impress, just to notice. There's a study that captures how wrong our predictions can be. Psychologists Nicholas Epley and Juliana Schroeder ran experiments with commuters in Chicago. People were asked to either sit in solitude or talk to a stranger during their commute. Beforehand, many expected that talking would be unpleasant, awkward, or less enjoyable than being left alone. But the people assigned to talk to strangers reported a more positive commute than they expected. The discovery wasn't just that connection helped, it was that people were bad at forecasting it. Your shy brain isn't only nervous, it's often a terrible fortune teller. It overestimates how much rejection will hurt. It underestimates how often other people are relieved when someone makes the first move gently. And it forgets that most people aren't sitting there with a clipboard grading your social performance. They're also trying to seem normal while managing their own weird private weather. So the goal isn't to become the most charming person in the room. The goal is to make clean, easy bids. A bid is a small offer of connection. The psychologist John Gottman used that idea to describe moments in relationships when one person reaches toward another. Look at that bird. Listen to this. You won't believe what happened. The relationship is shaped by what happens next. Does the other person turn toward the bid, turn away, or turn against it? Small talk works the same way, just at lower stakes. You say, "This playlist is doing a lot tonight," that's a bid. If they smile and say, "Right, I think we just jumped from jazz to early 2000s pop," the door is open. If they say, "Yeah," and look back at their phone, the door is probably closed. That's not a verdict on your worth. It's information. This distinction matters because shy people often treat every flat response like a courtroom sentence. But a cold reply can mean almost anything. The person is tired, they're waiting for someone, they're worried about a message, they have a headache, they've run out of social battery, they may be wearing invisible earbuds, emotionally speaking. Your job isn't to force warmth out of every human being. Your job is to offer something light, notice what comes back, and adjust. That's the real skill. Not talking more, seeing better. Watch for the body before you chase the topic. Feet angled away, short answers, no question back, eyes scanning the room. Let them go. Add a detail, a real smile, a pause that leaves space, a question returned to you. There's room there. Once there's room, small talk has a very simple engine. Notice something. Add a tiny piece of yourself. Follow the energy. The tiny piece of yourself is important. If you only ask questions, the other person can feel like they're being interviewed by a very polite machine. But if you reveal too much too soon, the conversation gets heavy before it has legs. So you give them a small human fingerprint, not just, this place is crowded. Try, I always think I can handle crowds until I'm actually in one. Not just, this coffee is strong. Try, this coffee is the only reason I'm still pretending to be awake. Not a confession, not a monologue. Just enough texture to prove there's a person behind the sentence. Then you follow what they give you. If they say they just moved here, you don't need the perfect question. Ask, what part started feeling normal first? If they mention their job, ask, is that easy to explain to people, or do you have to give the long version? If they say they have a dog who hates rain, ask, is this a mild preference or a full moral objection? Good questions don't force someone to perform their soul. They give them an easy place to become a little more specific. That specificity is where conversation starts to breathe. And this is where small talk gets bigger than it looks. The anthropologist Robin Dunbar argued that language may have evolved partly as a replacement for grooming. In primate groups, grooming isn't just hygiene. It's politics, friendship, stress relief, alliance maintenance. But physical grooming is slow. You can only groom one individual at a time. As human groups grew, Dunbar suggested, language lets do social maintenance more efficiently. A chimpanzee picks through fur. A human says, "How was your weekend?" That sounds ridiculous until you think about what's underneath the question. When a coworker asks about your weekend, the literal answer barely matters. You did laundry, you watched a show, you stood in a grocery aisle comparing two nearly identical sauces. Fine. But under that boring surface, another exchange is happening. Are we friendly? Do you remember me? Are we still on good terms? Can I tell you a little more next time? Small talk is relationship maintenance disguised as nothing. That's why weak ties matter so much. Gillian Sandstrom and Elizabeth Dunn studied casual interactions with people like classmates, neighbors, baristas, and familiar strangers. Those tiny exchanges were linked with greater feelings of belonging and well-being. Not every connection has to become deep to matter. Sometimes the point is just to feel that the world contains more friendly edges than your anxious brain predicted. But there's one part almost nobody teaches, and it may be the reason shy people avoid starting in the first place. Exits. If you don't know how to leave a conversation, every hello feels like a trap. You imagine stepping into an endless hallway of words with no door handle, so give yourself the exit before you enter. It was nice talking with you. I'm going to grab some water. I'm going to say hi to a couple people, but I'm glad we met. I don't want to keep you from the line, but good luck with the move. A graceful exit changes the whole structure. Small talk is no longer a cage. It's a bridge. You can cross it, pause in the middle, and step off when it's time. And that leads to the final reframe. Small talk isn't the opposite of depth. It protects depth. If every stranger immediately asked about your childhood, your regrets, your private hopes, your grief, your faith, your worst mistake, society would become unbearable by lunch. We need shallow water. We need the shoreline. We need places where two nervous creatures can stand near each other and decide whether it's safe to go further. So go back to that room. The drink in your hand, the phone you don't need to check, the people laughing about the parking garage or the rain, or the dog with strong opinions. You don't need to become fearless. Fearless isn't the price of admission. You only need to turn your attention outward for 5 seconds and make one small, honest bid. That dog sounds like he has standards. That's it. A shared object, a little warmth, An easy place to answer from. Maybe they laugh. Maybe they don't. Maybe the conversation lasts 30 seconds and disappears forever. Maybe it becomes 3 minutes. Maybe, once in a while, it becomes a friendship. But now, you're not treating small talk like a magical talent handed out to loud people at birth. You're seeing it for what it's, an ancient human ritual built from attention, safety, timing, and tiny signals. The room was never asking you to be brilliant. It was asking you to notice one real thing and offer it gently. And that's something even a shy person can practice, one sentence at a time.